Blessings out there in the name of the Most High. How is everyone doing on this second day of the week? I'm magnificent myself. Just, breezing through YouTube on this early morning while I'm on my early morning exercises. And it is to my amazement of all the individuals that you can tell they never study or read up on anything. They never do their research. But they always immediately begin spewing out all kinds of lunacy from their gullet, as if they contain unadulterated knowledge in regards to the subject matter at hand. It just blows my mind. And you can always you can always unearth the fact that these people haven't read anything. They haven't studied anything. They haven't even made any attempts at all whatsoever to study anything. All they do is prance around and pretend like they carry all the knowledge and wisdom, and they don't. It is disrespectful, and it is irresponsible to sit up here and try to tell somebody who's done the research diligently that they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm talking about doing, completing a deep dive on your, research and discovery. These people are insane, sitting up here perpetrating like they some would-be Einstein, and they're not. They just want to troll the comment section because that's all they've been reduced down to. So, it's completely mind-blowing. And any so-called African American in this day and age, if you're still, trying to represent that title or representing the color black as if that is your identity, you are completely lost in the overall grand scheme of things. You are completely lost. And it blows my mind how it's so many, so-called African Americans, black people still acknowledging themselves under that identity. We should be way beyond that at this juncture. You're not black. Stop reducing yourself down to such a low level. That's what the true enemy wants. They want you disconnected from the Most High God, because during that disconnect, now you're disconnected from your true identity and your true origins. Once again, illustrating how ignorant we are as a people. Same people who killed, it just blows my mind. And then they say they black with they say it proudly, with grit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, get out of here. You're not black. You're from Judah. You are an Israelite by blood. Everybody's walking around here under falsified identities and don't even understand it or know it. And anyone who wants to try to challenge me on that matter, hey, feel free to do so. I've done the research. Most people, they're not even going to look into it because they don't care. Because, them chasing money supersedes everything. As I'm always talking about. The cares of this life supersede the things that matter. Because once you come back into the true knowledge of self, things change emphatically. Things change emphatically once you come back to the knowledge of your true self, your true identity, and who you really truly are in the spirit of the Almighty. So I'm not taking no disrespect at all in that regard, and I never will. Or people that be in the comment section trying to, pretend as if the Most High God doesn't exist. Sitting up here, always got something to say, always got to run their pie hole, talking about things they have no idea about. Once again, illustrating the fact that they haven't, engaged in a single shred of research. How can you not believe that there is a God, creator of all? How can you really be prancing around this world pretending as if God doesn't exist? In a court of law, they'll have you put your hand on the Bible and swear. They'll have you swear on that Bible. You think they're getting ready to do that if God truly didn't exist? So it's like, come on now. It's like at some point, and then these same individuals on Judgment Day, they're going to be crying, whining, complaining. How you doing? Blessings to you. But yeah, these people on Judgment Day, they're going to be sitting here crying, whining, complaining, And we're the only country in the world that operates in the way that we do. We're just all out of order. Everyone else, they acknowledge the existence of the Most High God, And it's crazy how anybody can just sit here and pretend as if, and then the whole world knows who the true identity of the so-called African American. We're the only country prancing around here acknowledging ourselves under the guise of a color. Complete lunacy. You're a gangster. Yeah, okay. Well, what's truly gangster is being gangster in the spirit of the Almighty. That's the true definition of being a gangster. And not slaying your own kind for the enemy, carrying out the enemy's bidding. There's nothing gangster about that. Or reducing yourself down to a mere nothing. There's nothing gangster about that. The true gangsters are those in Christ, living it, walking it, enduring it. That's a real gangster. This modernized gangster facade is exactly what it is, a facade. One that I will not give credence to or acknowledge in any manner. I don't do that. I don't have time for it. Because on a worldly standpoint, the real gangsters are the covert agents. They'll come in, take you out the game without a single trace or a shred of evidence that even indicates that they've been there. That's true gangsterism. So let's just calm down. Let's calm down with the modified jokes this morning. This is a very serious thing for me. And it should be for everybody else. You got all these people trying to talk about God don't exist. They got their jokes. But I guarantee you this, on the day of judgment, they're going to be begging, talking about they didn't know, talking about they sorry. Get away from me, for there I have never known you. There's going to be the words that they're going to hear if they don't change their ways and their approach to life. You think they just got all these different gadgetries and level of technology? Where do you think they got the technology from? From the fallen angels who brought it here. Man would have never knew how to do a lot of the things that man knows how to do today had it not been for the fallen angels. So it's like, when are we going to engage in true knowledge and understanding? When are we going to really step all the way out there and study these things in the manner in which they need to be studied? When are we going to do that? Why are we just sitting up here prancing around, approaching life on our own would-be level of knowledge? There is so much on this earth going on. This earth is so big. It is way bigger than what they tell us. Man does not have the capabilities to measure it. Because you got to think, there are civilizations of Nephilim and everything else that live inside of the planet. The planet is cavernous. There is no molten lava inside of it. But on another note, in the heart of this earth, hell is. Hell is down here on earth. And it is a physical place. The lake of fire. So, we gotta start discarding all these fictionalized narratives that they done inserted and ingrained into our minds. And then we be prancing around here, you know, getting laughed at by the powers that don't be, because the information that they put out here in a fraudulent manner, we done soaked it up. Now we spewing, would be Einstein rhetoric from our gullets, pretending like we got it all in the bag. And you don't have nothing in the bag but your ignorance, because you don't want to wake up. And then speaking of waking up, these same type of people, they'll tell you need to wake up. Like there was this, they was talking about martial arts, and the true people that need to be receiving recognition for it, but don't. All the recognition is always given to the Asians, and that's incorrect. The Asians should not be receiving. But I took it deeper than that, because they said it was about the blacks and the Africans and da 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 da. We are not black. We are not African. These are Israelites. See, you got to go deeper. And I've been in martial arts my whole entire life since the age of adolescence. And I've taught, I've had my own schools and everything up under the sun. I was a personal trainer also as well. So, I was always teaching the things that they try to, keep hidden and keep contained. And it brought me a lot of flack at the end of the day. So this is a subject matter I'm very versed in. Sometimes, everybody's got that thing that, identifies them and that they're good at. Martial arts is mine. So, but then, people want to forget the biblical aspects and everything. Fallen angel Azazel was the fallen angel responsible for teaching man martial arts and military strategy. Taught him how to make weapons, how to melt the metals down and construct weapons for war. You don't just get a name like that and just concoct it and it not be for real, and not have any truth behind it. There's just, people don't use their God-given brain before they start, running their gullet on a YouTube comment section post. So, like I said, these people are miserable, because anybody going around here, prancing around here, pretending like the Most High God doesn't exist, I bet they're going through the most extra of circumstances in their little miserable lives. They are. They going through the most. Their relationships probably suck at a maximized capacity level. I'm telling you the truth. Every time you turn around, something negative is probably going on in their lives. And for what? Because they got that disconnect from Christ. That's why. That disconnect is crucial. But we'll hold on to man when man fails us at every beck and time. Every time you turn around, man will fail you. But they'll believe in these so-called space odysseys and Artemis 2 and, all these fraudulent stories. They'll buy completely into that with no pushback. That's what's absurd to me. These people will completely buy into these fictionalized narratives without understanding the layout of the earth. And that layout consists of, there's a firmament. So you're not getting anywhere. You're not so-called flying through space. That's not happening. This was part of the reason why NASA was even formed, so that they could police the skies, hide the thing, and then feed us all these absurd stories that don't make any sense. You know, it's crazy. It makes no sense at the end of the day. When there's water up there, on the other side of the firmament, and we don't even know how deep down we are in that. It's almost like we're an aquarium for real. Hence, Operation Fishbowl, Operation Artichoke, and Operation Dominic. Y'all need to look into those operations before we start sitting up here spewing negativity like we think we know something when we don't know jack. All we know what to do is how to listen to something that appeases to our eardrums instead of listening to what's for real and what's just and true. It don't make no sense. In 2020, the so-called year of 2026, the accurate year is 5,000 or something. But see, this is studying, praying, asking for knowledge and wisdom and understanding from the Most High, and then these things will be revealed to you. But people don't want to do that. People are completely content with waking up, going to their slave job, being disrespected, taking and accepting all of these unnatural actions pitted forth against them, all in the name of, I gotta take care of me and mine. All under the guise of, I gotta get that brethren. I gotta get that money. I gotta get that paper. All while your soul is starving. You are starving your soul, you know what I mean? You need to replenish that soul with that Christ mechanism. But see, people don't want to do that. People happy with that. Then they get beat down on the jobs. Then they spend all that time there, and then they don't even get to enjoy the fruits of their labor because they gotta fork it all out under the guise of paying bills, and they're completely happy. They feel accomplished having to take that hard-earned blood and give it over to another person when the Most High God gave us all these things freely. So it's like we really truly need to really understand the con artistry job that's been implemented instead of prancing around here pretending like God don't exist, pretending like the fallen angels don't exist, when every culture in the world acknowledges this. America is the only culture that operates in the manner in which it does, and it's just a branch off civilization of England and the European countries. That's it. This is just crazy. If people would just truly wake up, truly get back to a knowledge of self, turn away from sin, turn to Christ, things would change. The curses that we are up under would cease to exist. Instead of us being subservient to every nation of people because of our disobedience to the Most High God. Excuse me. Like, you know what I mean? It's like at this juncture, man, it's like, oh, this is just completely senseless. And it's always individuals who they have not once engaged in a shred of investigation. They ain't researched nothing. They ain't read a book. They just want to go off of their belief system. A belief system that is manufactured on top of that. People walking around here with a complete manufactured system of belief, and then they act like it's on their accord when it's not. It's on the accord of the 1% sitting behind the scenes pulling the strings in a long hierarchy of minions dedicated to Satan and his cause. Satan loves an ignorant person because ignorance is blissful. And if you're in a state of bliss, how can you be privy to the things that is going on? How can you be privy to the deceptions that have been put in place to keep you stagnant? But once you come back to that Christ source, all that stuff begins to disintegrate. It is what it is at the end of the day. And it's going to be what it's going to be, regardless of what anyone believes or you know, what they decide to believe in. Because this decision is critical. You know, failure to contain the right belief system, you know what I mean, that'll cut, man, you will perish at the end of the day when it's all said and done. You know, why do you think they always got the Holy Scriptures? Because they use that as a guide to try to get ahead of prophecy. But yet they continue to fail at trying to get ahead of that same said level of prophecy. They can't do it. So they don't mind when people sit up here and contain that level of absurdity, taking on the attributes of a complete and utter numbskull. They have no problem, they have no issues with that. But once you come into that knowledge of Christ on a real level and unearth who you are, your true identity, and how all and the true history of the world and every culture and how we got to our current dispositionary point of being, oh, you're going to be enemy numero uno out here. That's when the tactics will be thrown into the equation. Relentless tactics to try to get you off of the path of righteousness. Because if you're on the path of righteousness, now you're a threat to the kingdom of darkness. Now you're a threat to Satan's kingdom and what he's trying to achieve. And now you can neutralize and disintegrate these plans. It's a process, but a doable process. So we know, you know what I mean? So we need to quit sitting up here pretending like God don't exist. That's unacceptable. And it's always numbskull minions in the comment sections who want to blurt out such absurd piece of fiction. But then they'll believe that there's other planets. They'll believe all this nonsense. They'll believe that aliens exist when aliens do not exist. The so-called aliens that they speak of are angels. Whether they're fallen or, you know, from the heavens. I mean, they're all from the heavens, but, you know, we've got fallen angels down here on earth. You've got some fallen angels imprisoned. You know, it was all based upon the crimes. And what does that sound like? It sounds like a type of judicial system, you know, in the heavens. You gotta think, Satan runs the show down here. And Satan copies everything that the Most High God does, but he does it in reverse. But the format is always the same. You know, he wants to be God. He wants to be like him. He's seen the throne. He's seen the greatness. He's seen man created. So he's seen all these things, and he's been here all this time. So, you know, people need to do your research before you start trying to argue up against an individual of my caliber and stature, because that's not going to get you anywhere but upset at the end of the day. You know, don't ever in this life let anyone one-up you in an area that you excel in. And I'm gonna keep it just like that on that topic. But a lot of those individuals, you know, they get paid to put out fraudulent information like that because they want, especially those who are new to all of this, they want you to be hindered. They want to keep you from connecting to the Christ source. Because once you connect to that, I'm telling you, it's like new money. That's why I don't accept it when people start talking that, oh, there's no God. There's no this and that. Da 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 da. Then they'll have all these jokes and scoff sessions. But then they'll believe that other planets exist. They'll believe that, oh, we've been to Mars, and all they doing is showing you photographs, either A, that they've just concocted, or photographs that have been doctored up from different regions on this earth that they don't let the populace access. You know, they don't let us access a lot of the different regions on this earth. Even commercial airlines, when it makes more sense to go one way, they'll go all around a whole different route just so you don't see the geography that they've lied about, having, you know, the masses believe that the geography is in one manner when it's truly in a whole, you know what I mean, in a whole completely different light. It's crazy. It is so crazy to me. And then how the so-called 7 continents, they're surrounded by an ice wall. But see, the earth was once all one landmass. But when the Most High brought the flood on, it broke everything up. So, you know, we got to do better, because our lack of knowledge is what's keeping us contained by the powers that don't be. Our lack of knowledge is destroying us wholesale. We got to stop being okay with that, approaching life in a minimized manner, in a manner that they've, you know, minimized us down to. Like, that's so unacceptable. It is more to us than that. It's more to us than going to go slave for somebody. Then we got to take our wages and we got to keep forking it out in all these different areas and avenues when it shouldn't be that way. And then they brainwashed us into completely accepting these narratives as this is what life is all about. And if we would exercise and fast and pray on a consistent basis, we won't even age like that. Fasting unlocks powerful benefits in the body. The Most High God, see, that's why I don't understand. How can you seriously believe that God doesn't exist? Look how scientifically put together our biological structure is, and what the Most High has done with our bodies, and how these bodies can heal themselves completely given the right circumstances, doing the right things in the spirit of the Almighty. He gave us everything we needed to be okay and to continue to be youthful and vibrant. But see, we've accepted these fraudulent diets that they done shoved down our gullets, these food charts that is just fictionalized in nature. They got us acknowledging that. We need to get back to the biblical diet, because one meal of that biblical diet will have your energy levels off the Richter scale. Have your cognitive functions operating at a maximized capacity. But see, and these are the things that I'm up here, you know, talking about and studying and investigating, because it all goes hand in hand with the existence of the Most High. But then we've got idiots out here thinking that consuming meat, like we're supposed to be chasing protein. Like, nah, we're not supposed to be doing that. Now, consuming amino acids is good, because these are the building blocks for real. But we shouldn't be up here, you know, trying to consume protein like that. So, you know, people really need to get themselves in order instead of sitting up here, you know, trading and pretending all day long. And then these same individuals, they sit up here and they adhere to the lies that has been ingrained into their skull matter. Like, come on, man. Why can't we do better than this? Why don't we want to learn? Why, you know, they got us out here chasing paper, like literal paper, under the guise of riches, under the guise of money, when the real money is the gold and the silver and the copper, the onyx and the jasper, the uranium, the oil, the coal, all these different things. That's real money. That's real wealth. not this, not this green piece of paper, you know, that is no longer even really truly backed up by gold anyway. Probably never was. You can't believe anything that they put out here. Like, how can you? Doesn't make no sense. So we gotta get back to the real deal. And that begins with a knowledge of self. You gotta know who you are. You gotta know your true identity out here. You gotta know what the true mission is. Can't be sitting up here falling for deceptive measures. You know, it's not right. You gotta be better than this. We are smarter than this. We are more powerful than this. But yet, we're at the bottom of the totem pole due to our level of ignorance. We don't even want to see our own kind excel. We always want to illustrate the crabs in a bucket effect. When it comes to our own kind trying to do better, everybody else, they stick together, they work together to achieve a common goal. But not us. We'll sit up here, pull each other down. We'll slaughter each other under the guise of, oh, I'm gangster. I'm a G dog in the street gang. And then they really be operating on this low level of frequency. They're a G in the so-called streets, slaughtering their own kind wholesale, doing the will of the enemy, you know what I mean? but they're a G in the streets. But they help and slaughter our people. What a complete joke. It's a joke, man. Anyone talking that they a gangster to me, and you up here taking out our own kind, helping the enemy, you ain't no gangster at all. You're a sickness. You're a sickness that needs to be dealt with in the spirit of the Almighty. And we got to stop allowing individuals, we got to stop allowing ourselves to adhere to these ideologies. These ideologies is neutralizing our people, man. It is. We got to stop giving the powers that don't be what they want. Stop doing the job for the enemy. Make the enemy work hard to achieve their goal. You know? Look how hard they make us work just for the illusions of the world. Mere illusions. Gotta stop falling for deceptions and illusions, because they're all around us. So, you know, get out there, get you some exercise in. You know, stop being scared of that sunshine. We need that sun. That sun is pivotal. That sun is critical in our lives. You know, like I said, the Most High God, he you know, this is a brilliant suit that he's given us. You know, we got to stop squandering it off. We got to stop sitting here lurking around, hunting down people to have sex with, which is just completely astonishing to say the least. And we've all been there. We've all been under that delusion at one time or another. But there's no time like the present to get back to reality and to really understand how sacred our bodies truly are. I mean, our bodies are constructed in a way that you're not going to sit up here and tell me about some so-called Big Bang theory, and then I'm just supposed to acknowledge this so-called theory, which that's all it is a theory, when there's nothing theoretical about all of this. It's very literal. It's very direct. The Most High God, everything he did was very intentional, you know. So we got to stop giving AI all the credit. AI was constructed from the mind of a human being. You know, these are nothing but vessels for demonic entities who once contained a body but no longer contain one because they were once the giants that roamed. But the Nephilim, they're still here. There's no doubt about that. Then you got a lot of people in the Nephilim bloodline, you know, like politicians and actors, people who are in positions of power. This is why votes don't count. How can votes count? Seriously. Now, anybody can run and all that. Oh, yeah. But your votes don't count. They don't count for anything. Presidents are selected. They're not elected. They're selected. It's about everyone getting their time. And the way it's looking, Trump is really going to be the last president that we see. There are things unfolding, people, as we speak. And they're unfolding, which aligns real nice. It's aligned quite nicely with Scripture. Everything that Bible said from start to finish has happened in the exact manner in which it said it would happen. That's why it baffles me that people will sit up here running their, excuse my French, but running their meat sucker like they think they know something or like they contain some level of knowledge that no one else is privy to. Knowing they ain't read anything. Their mind nullified. At the end of the day, you know, their mind nullified. So we need to calm down with the modified jokes. We gotta get back to the real. Understand who you are. And that's just not black people. Everyone needs to understand who they are, what bloodlines you fall under. That way you'll have a true understanding as to what we're really dealing with here. Because that stuff matters. But they want you to reduce yourself down to looking at everything in a black and white manner. You know? You're not going to reduce me down to that. I'm sorry, but I'm not going. You're not going to reduce us down to a mere color, a stain. No, we are greater than that. So we need to stay vigilant. We need to stay focused. Y'all need to be out there making sure you staying in shape. You know what I mean? You need to make sure your cognitive functions are completely up to par. These things must be done. Things must always be edified. Because I'm telling you right now, things that are getting ready to unfold, if you don't have Christ's protection, you're going to perish. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be. It ain't going to be no sky daddy jokes. It ain't going to be any of that. It's going to be them crying out to Christ, Yeshua, begging for mercy, begging for forgiveness. When the time to ask for forgiveness is now. The time to get back to Christ is now. Instead of sitting up here operating, you know, under a very strong demonic delusion. You know what I'm saying? That way of thinking isn't going to get you anywhere, but led to your slaughter, led to your demise. I just hope everybody, you know, and it goes for me too. I fall short daily myself, but at least I acknowledge it. And acknowledgement is key. We can't be sitting up here prancing around, carrying ourselves around here in a buffoonic manner. You know, need to realize how great life can really truly be. And I'm not talking about chasing no dadgone money, no green paper that they done switched out for the real riches. You know what I'm saying? Which is just a complete, just them again playing games in our faces. And the same thing goes for all these people that's out here following people around illegally, acting like they private eye or somebody in Inspector Gadget. You know, their time is coming too. So they can sit up here and play these games all in which they like. But at the day's end, it's not gonna go good for them at all. Like not even a smidgen of a little bit. You know, the things that I experience on a day-to-day basis, you know, it only further confirms that I'm touching on all the right points, that I know what I'm talking about. Because an individual who doesn't know what you're talking about, you're not going to be getting followed by multitudes of individuals who accept money to follow you around. But if it was to happen to them, they would be scared to death. And then, you know, they'd be screaming outrage, and it'll be all this crybaby antics about why they getting followed around. So that's the differential. We need to keep that in mind. We need to keep pushing in the spirit of the Almighty. Turn away from sin. Turn to Christ. Because there is no other way, truly. I've tried it every other way, and let me tell you, these other ways don't work. So, I mean, hey, if you want to give the enemy your soul and your service, hey, by all means. But when it's all said and done, don't start crying and, you know, with the antics, the crybaby antics, talking about you didn't know, or no one ever told you, or nah. Because the time you put into believing that space exists and all these other planets exist, you can put the time into this and get the real truth. It is completely absurd to think that we're spinning so fast on a ball flying through space, just flying in endless space. We're just flying on a spinning ball. That is absurd. I feel sorry for people who think like that. I mean, I truly do. How can you sit up here? So now they done tricked you into believing that you can't feel, you can't discern, you can't differentiate between their nonsense and the realities of Scripture. So, you know, it's just disrespectful in totality. We're not on no spinning ball flying through space. The earth is stationary and it sits on pillars. You know, we gotta stop misreading Scripture. You know, we gotta start understanding Scripture for what it is. Ask for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from the Most High. That way we can discern the Scriptures in the manner in which they was meant to be discerned, instead of sitting up here with these falsified ideologies thereof. Ideologies that, you know, at the day's end, just makes you look like a complete idiot. Doesn't make no sense to me. Sitting up here just believing in nonsense when the information is out here. So, you know, we cannot be falling under people's deceptions. Can't do it. It's not going to get us anywhere. We need to stand on truth and righteousness in the spirit of the Most High God and Christ. There's no other way to do it. That's why you have to turn away from sin. It is important. It is imperative. If you're not baptized, get baptized. Because you need that renewing, that rebirth. You know, it's critical. If you're eating 3 or more times a day, regardless if you're working out or not, discontinue that. You're rushing yourself to your grave. We're not meant to be eating like that. Once a day is sufficient. Maybe even twice, depending upon, you know, situation. But sitting up here, eating that much a day, like, nah, you know what I mean? You aging yourself by doing that. That's what they don't tell you. You aging yourself, and you need to, you know, continue. You need to get your diets up to par. Because eating that much a day, I mean, you're rushing yourself to your grave. Period. You need to be fasting, you know, and at least fast to the point of autophagy, to where, you know, your body is getting rid of all the bad cells and the bad things. The body renews itself, but we got to place our body within the right conditions so we can, you know, operate at a maximized level, especially when you're fasting and things of that nature. So we need to keep that in mind as well. That's all I'm saying. We can do it. And the space and opportunity to do it. Fasting unlocks so many benefits in this body, let me tell you. And then, you know, and then the Most High God, you know, He recognizes when you fast. You know, going without eating and drinking. So this delusion of, oh, you gotta eat 3 times a day, or you need so many carbs and so much protein, like, man. And I'm a fitness instructor, like I you know, I do this for real. So I know what I'm talking about. Because I once used to buy into these ideologies also. I don't anymore though. Because when you learn better, you do better. You know, you don't learn something and then you question what you learn, especially if you put the time in it to learn it. You got to understand, you know, you got to stand on that Christ business at the end of the day. There's no other way to view this thing. And discontinue acknowledging these celebrities' word as gospel. We got to stop acknowledging their word as the unadulterated gospel. Most of them, they've already sold their souls for fame and fortune. Then once they got in there and been forced to engage in unnatural acts, you know, now they start feeling conflicted. You know, conflicted, convicted, and confused. Because they know they done messed up. They know they done messed up big time. And once you sell your soul, hey, you can't undo that. So we hey, I am trying to tell you what's real out here. On the real, for real. Like I said, it's easy to be negative in this world. Negativity gets you clicks, views, and likes, subscribers, all that. But do it the other way. Doing it the other way in the spirit of the Almighty is going to always be the best way. It might take a little longer, but at least you put the work in. You got it out the mud, and you sculpted that mud in a manner that's going to be more beneficial at the day's end than not. So there's some things to think about. We've got a lot of work to do because the end is quite near, whether we want to realize it or not. Why you think time has sped up? Notice how fast these days are coming and leaving. It just feel like 2 weeks ago that week began, and here we are 2 weeks later. Like, y'all need to start really paying attention to these things. We really need to pay attention and operate according to the Spirit of the Most High. And all these people coming out with these exposure videos, Now, my heart goes out to those who, they might be really experiencing some things that aren't right. But listen to every word uttered. Watch body language. And listen to them carefully. The things in which they're, extenuating. Because everybody who's claiming to be, dealing with things, they're not really dealing with things. They're dealing with things that they brought upon themselves because they still trying to live a foot in the world and a foot in Christ. And lukewarm ain't gonna get you anywhere but spit out. People don't want to be obedient because we have been deceived in thinking that the views of the world that's been ingrained into our minds, we can take these set of views and bring them into the house of Christ. And we can't do that. There's no place in Christ for anything that has to do with the world. So we need to remember that. We really need to remember that. So, and I hope that we do. I really do. I want to see everybody win in the spirit of the Almighty. I don't want to see people out here perishing. What kind of life is that? Or what kind of life is it to be living up here, slaving to the bone grizzly gristle under the guise of getting that money? And then when you're not at the slave yard, you're quite exhausted. When you're at the slave yard, you're dealing with all kind of drama, people trying to bring you down, people trying to get you fired, people trying to set you up for failure at the job. I went through all that in Dallas, let me tell you. Because Dallas is a place that's always going to be dear to me regardless of whatever. Because this is what really, 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 truly put me on in this life as far as what the full gravity of what we're up against and what we're dealing with and what's truly going on. And all this started happening at a time in my life when I really thought I knew everything. When I thought I had it in the bag because I had the governmental aspects signed and sealed. I didn't have the Christ factor intertwined with that though. And that's where I was failing at. And then once I started putting all this together and learning new things, I found myself being followed around. They'll never even say anything to you. They'll follow you until you ready to self-defend. And then they want to go get, do all the little things that they do because they're trying to entrap you in their little snares. And it's not just regular civilian people. You got all walks of life attached to this new age level of stalking that they can engage in and get away with. It's completely absurd how they can just do these things, and then not be held accountable for their actions. Implementing covert attributes. Specifically speaking, the skill set of tradecraft. But they expect you to not to know or understand the entire gravity of what these skill sets consist of. They want you to be just willfully ignorant, and when you're standing on that business and showing that you're not, nor will you be deterred, the tactics increase. But that's why you gotta stay hedged under Christ's protection. You'll get through it. And it never really truly goes away, because by the time you notice it for what it truly is, especially if they know you're already a person who watches their surroundings, you watch everything. When you go anywhere, any room you step into, you scan the room. You're looking for exits. You're looking for all these different things in the event that something unfolds abruptly. You've got an out. So now that you've already contained that approach, you know, different cities, they'll incorporate this thing in different ways. Smaller cities, you know, they're going to do it in a way to where it's almost unnoticeable, but yet you'll still notice it. You know when you're being followed. You know when you're being scrutinized in that manner. Don't ever allow anyone to try to tell you otherwise, or to try to sit up here and question your level of discernment, like you don't have the ability to see through these things, these deceptive measures at hand. Because you better. Mauricethewarrior. Like I was saying, like this truck you hear right now, like they work for places like that, UPS, FedEx, you know, Amazon, like, but that's the demons working in them also, you know, working through these people to keep tabs and dibs on you, you know. They get nervous when you standing on that Christ business, let me tell you. Like I said, I've seen a lot. I've dealt with a lot with this. That's why can't nobody sit up here and try to pretend up around me that Christ don't exist. We're not even going to entertain such delusion, such treachery, such tactics to try to keep you disconnected. We're not going to deal in those areas. We're dealing with Christ. And that's what we're always going to be dealing with. And they hate that. Because they know that's one power they cannot contain. That's one power they can't do anything with or against. But to stand down and accept the beating that they tried to give through the Spirit of Christ. You know, no more, no less. It's always about Christ at the end of the day. Belief systems, it pales in comparison to the unadulterated truth regarding Christ. And it always will. You know what I mean? In this so-called year of 2026, which is really 5,000, is it 78 or something like that? I have to look. And we're supposed to be going by the ancient Hebraic calendar. That's the calendar that the Most High God deemed appropriate to be following. See, that's why they came with the 365-day delusion with an occasional leap year. That way they can fit all of their nonsense in there nice and neatly. So it's about understanding these things for what it is. And always understand when you're being trailed and followed and, you know, surveilled by individuals who don't even have legal clearance to engage in such actions. Just know, and I'm not saying out of fear, but understand it for what it is, so you can use it as a teaching point, if nothing else. But, you know, but carry on with your daily activities, you know, but understand things for what it truly is. We're in a time of the great deception. We're in times like there's never been before. You know, and we're the generation who's blessed enough to see these things unfold and coming to fruition. Things that all the prophets were talking about, the apostles, everybody's been, talking about the times to come for quite some time. And now we're in that age that these things are occurring. So that's what it is. And that's what it's going to be. Hope everybody out there having a blessed day today, And always run to the knowledge. Don't run from the knowledge because, the level of knowledge is beginning to be uncomfortable according to your current level of knowledge or belief system. Run full force into the knowledge. Because running full force into knowledge, it'll keep you from meeting your demise. It'll keep you connected to Christ's source. And it'll keep you disconnected from nonsense. You don't want to be connected to any level of nonsense, especially in these times. We are in some delicate times. The government going against ancient Persia right now as we speak, currently called Iran. And that's what I'm saying. All throughout the annals of time, it's just been this stripping of true nationality or true identity and a re-implementation of whatever they want to insert to cause confusion. Because once they cause confusion, now they can carry out their evil agenda at hand, their evil satanic plans as a whole. And why in the world would we want to allow such things to transpire? And if things like this, and if I wasn't adequate in what I'm sitting here discussing, they wouldn't try so hard to try to keep you from being able to unearth this knowledge now. YouTube has changed so much. You could get on there, almost see anything. But now with all these new rules and regulations in place, and these same said rules and regulations is keeping knowledge harder to access. Because now they done incorporated so much fictionalized nonsense that comes, alongside of the real knowledge. And then, they might even be spot on up until it hits a certain plateau, and then they'll throw in their that's when they'll throw in their little satanic nonsense, their little satanic delusions, their little satanic deceptions. And then we got to stop people who wear these white jackets under the guise of doctors, things of that nature. We got to stop holding what they say as the gospel truth also, especially when it comes to health and fitness. Like, we really got to stop that. Because these type of individuals, most of them are sorcerers. I mean, you got to look into pharmakia. What is pharmakia? The practicing of medication with all these different chemical agents that are harmful to the body. Pharmakia, pharmacy, anybody? So come on. So, we're gonna get it together today. Oh, yes. Yes, we are. Knowledge is power for real, on a real level. But you got to apply that knowledge. Can't be just sitting on knowledge and not implementing it to the maximized effect. Because if you're not doing that, you're just wasting time. So let's not waste time. The people who are following you around on day to day, who get paid boatloads of money to do it, they just wasting time at the day's end. Because do they really honestly think something good is going to come to them from that? It's not. It never will. They're wasting time. The tactics are meaningless. And they've allowed themselves to be reduced down to nothing. You couldn't pay me $1 million to follow somebody around. I promise you. You couldn't do it. You couldn't pay me no amount of money to sit up here and just infringe on an individual's rights like that. Just follow you around, smelling your undies and things of that nature. Like, these people are sick. These type of people that they utilize for this, you can bet your sweet bottom gluteal region that they use them for the Moloch child sacrifices, the kidnapping of women and children and all these other things. These are the type of people that they utilize for these actions. And then the true people responsible for it, they have unscathed hands in the process. Cleaner than a whistle. And it definitely shouldn't be that way. But things are coming to a head. They won't be they will no longer be able to get away with the things in the manner in which they've been getting away from, because they still got to answer to Christ at the end of the day. And ain't nobody getting in there without going through him first. So cannot forget that at all. Can't forget it. Not even for a millisecond. Getting ready to go off up into this woods. I think I might do some forums today, get a good sweat going. And, I might start posting those type of videos again. I used to, like last decade, but then it's like, people was utilizing videos and coming and using that, and it's just a lot to that. So it's really not that big of a deal. But this station, I really wanted to primarily focus on Christ and that mission. If I decide to display my skills on the horizon again, it'll be simple. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing what I'm doing in regards to this station. I'm not expecting anything but to sow seeds, and hopefully those seeds grow and maximize. All in the spirit of Christ. That's what I'm trying to achieve with this station. And it will, all in due time. Because I got faith on that. Yes, I do. But this world has just changed so much. It just blows my mind every time I turn around. It does. We have come such a long way, and we got a long ways to go. And time is not of the essence. Well, this is where I take my little intermission. Y'all have a very blessed day. Get out there and get some sun in your life. Don't be scared of that sun. We need that. That's life source. Get that sun. And stop believing that the sun is all these millions of miles away. Because it's inside of the firmament with us. So it's in here with us. The sun goes through portals every day. It doesn't set and rise and all like they're trying to say. It goes through portals. So, it's all about getting back to that knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Stay stay hedged in protection of the Most High God in Christ. Turn from sin, repent, get baptized. And then once you get to that point, sow the very seeds that were sown into you to bring more believers to Christ. Because that's what it's about. That's what the satanic agenda is all about also. They don't care what walk of life, what background you contain. They'll accept you because they view you as a soldier for their cause. So let's adopt those traits, but on the good side of the equation, in the spirit of Christ. That said, you have a fantastic day. I will too. God bless everybody. Shalom.